Hello, everybody. We are entering into Gate 2 or Gene Key 2, which is very dear to my heart. This is happening between May 4th and May 9th, 2023. And it's dear to my heart because the three of the four most important men in my life, my partner and my two brothers, are all born with Gate 2 in their conscious sun. So, and I have the Gate 14, which completes the channel. So this is very, very special to me. So Gate 2 occurs, you find it in the G center, and it's connected to the sacral via Gate 14. And this is individual knowing circuit, the individual and knowing circuitry, and it's called the channel of the beat. In the quantum language, it's known as the gate of allowing, and in traditional language, it's known as keeper of the keys. And in the I Ching, it's known as Earth. And Earth is, if you think of Earth is the ultimate feminine, the ultimate receptive, the ultimate receiving, right? The vessel to receive. It allows everything and holds us all. The Earth holds everything that we experience in this life. It holds us when we rest. It holds us when we sit. It holds us in our tears and in our joys and our celebrations. And it allows it all. So this transit is highlighting the opportunity to open to receiving simply by being you. That you need to do nothing else to receive all of the goodness available to you other than by being yourself, right? It's in the G center, so it's all about self-love and direction. And it's also giving us the opportunity to deepen our self-worth and faith and trust. On the shadow side of this, we see stress and fear because you might not believe that you're supported, and that ends up in compromising yourself for what you want and your individual expression. The integrated expression of this gate is living in a state of gratitude and the ability to hold your intentions while moving towards those intentions, knowing that you are supported in being fully you. Richard Rudd calls this gene key returning to the one. And he talks about how it's the archetypal feminine, and it grounds, this gene key grounds the magic and wisdom of the universe. And it's the polarity piece, right? We live in duality on this planet, in these bodies, in this lifetime right now. And so that feminine grounds the energy of the masculine, of the wisdom of the universe. And in the truth of the feminine energy, everything is connected and has a purpose. Everything. Absolutely everything. Even mosquitoes. Right? Everything has a purpose. It's like the great mother. Right? It's like the ultimate mama bear. Right? Every child has its place and purpose in the family. And it is the universal field, so to speak, like a field of grass that accepts all seeds and opportunities that are planted in it. And what I really appreciate that Richard Rudd writes about is that he speaks of this evidence that there is, that in the oldest versions of the I Ching, this was actually the first hexagram, the feminine. And what we know now as hexagram 1 or Gene Key 1 was actually the second, the masculine. And the theory is that because we transformed into more of a patriarchal culture, it got flipped. So the shadow of this gene key is dislocation. and the gift is orientation. Dislocation is this sense of being lost in time and space and being disconnected from a part of the whole. But it's also just about perception. Because you know when you're lost, right? You're driving somewhere and you're lost. You've never been there before. It doesn't happen as much now that we have Google Maps, but it could, right? When you're lost, you can't find your way. It only feels like you're lost because you don't actually have the big picture. But as soon as you kind of get an idea of where you are, you find your way out or to where you want to go. So this perspective is deeply linked to your nervous system. And because when we are in the perspective of being lost, of being disconnected, our nervous system state gets elevated into a fight, flight, or down into a freeze state. And that has us perpetuating that feeling of dislocation, that feeling of disconnection. So Richard Rudd talks about how our perception, your individual perception, is a way to measure your frequency state. Because when you can hold a wider perception, meaning that there is more possibility available, you are in the receptive mode of being willing to receive anything, your frequency shifts. When you are in an elevated nervous system state, a dysregulated state, you're dislocated, your perception shuts down, it narrows, and you become focused on survival. And so your frequency state lowers or it becomes slower. On a mass collective, we are moving into a greater level of awareness. And we see this happening in technology, in spirituality, in astrology, through this age of Aquarius we're moving into, the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And this is all good. There's an evolution happening. But it's this shadow of dislocation that tells us that we've made it worse, that our earth is suffering, that more people are suffering, that the financial systems are suffering. And it's this shadow that's telling the human consciousness that we're going in a bad direction, that we fucked everything up. And this happens both on an individual and a collective level. And it's a sense of being out of flow. It's kind of like if we are meant to be in the river, we are now on the banks of the river trying to tell other people where to go or where the river should go, right? We're trying to control life. And we witness the struggle and the helplessness, but we don't get in to see what it's like, to see potential and where we could go. So you find this shadow coming out in two ways, either lost, where you're disconnected from a spiritual source, or where you're seeking to find fulfillment from outside of you, or regimented, where you are enforcing a rhythm or a structure in your life. And not that enforcing a rhythm or a structure is a bad thing, but where it comes from is this need to control, often from a place of anger that has never been alchemized, or we haven't gotten to the root of the anger. You need to get back in the river. You need to enter back into the flow. And if you've ever been in a river that's flowing, right? Whether you've been like tubing down the river or you're actually swimming in the river, there's an element at first when you get into the river of uncertainty because the current is taking you in all sorts of directions. There are boulders or rocks under the water and you don't really know what there is. And so you need to get back into the river and allow yourself to feel uncertain and wobble a little bit in this place. It's like there's this doing and non-doing at the same time. There's an action of getting back into the flow, and then there's an action of not surrender, but kind of giving yourself over to. And when we give ourselves over to the flow, it's calling us into deepening our trust and owning that we might feel lost and that we want to trust and that we want to allow our way to unfold. So in this gift of orientation, it occurs in one of two ways, according to Richard Rudd. And he says either it's a shift in awareness that changes our actions, or it's a shift in actions that change our awareness. And it's kind of like if we use the metaphor of the river and on the banks. As soon as you see that you're meant to be in the river, right? And you're like, oh, maybe it's better in there, and you guessed for you and how it's impacting your life, you will then take the steps to move into the river. Or something boots you off of the banks and you get back into the river. Maybe not out of a conscious, deliberate choice, but because something in your life gets you back in there, and that changes your perspective of what it likes to be, what life is like when you're in the river. And this is where we tap into synchronicity. This is where that beautiful experience of synchronicity occurs, right? Have you ever had that where it's just like things line up just because they do? Like here's a really great, I love this synchronicity in this video right now, in her unconscious earth. And gate 40 and choose perfect touchstone is our breath. Your breath, my breath, our breath is our direct connection to life force giving energy. As in Sanskrit it's known as prana. In ancient Chinese, it's known as, in the Chinese teachings, it's known as qi, right? This breath is our direct connection to the earth, to our hearts. It's our direct connection to a natural rhythm. It's our direct connection to flow. And so when you allow it and when you bring your awareness to your breath, you actually enter into that state of receptivity. That is what Gene Key number 2, gate number 2 is calling us into. Enjoy the transit, and thank you so much for watching.